Hello there! Welcome to another episode of Silly Poems with my special peeps. Guess why I have this wristband on? So, I have some granddaughters. I just had a brand new grandbaby, and I have 6 grandkids altogether, and I love to spend time with them. And here in Utah, where I live, it has been fall break. And so my daughter lives below me and she has a little girl. But my other daughter, who lives a little bit farther away, had just had a baby. So her oldest daughter came to spend time with my granddaughter that lives below me. And she was here all weekend. And so I got to spend time with both of them. And it was so much fun. I loved it so much. And today we went to the pumpkin patch together because that's a family tradition that we've been doing ever since my very first grandbaby was born. There is a pumpkin patch about 10 or 15 minutes from where we live, and we go there. It's called Jakers, and we go there every year, and we get to go on a pumpkin hayride, and they get to go down slides, and they get to go in a hay, like a maze that's made up of hay bales, and they get to see animals and so many fun things, and there's pumpkins everywhere because there's a big pumpkin patch, and it's so cute and it's so fun. So I like to keep this on because it reminds me that I got to go with my granddaughters. So my oldest granddaughter really likes to tell jokes, and she'll hear them from school and she'll think they're so funny. She's only in first grade, so she's really young. And my other granddaughter's not even in kindergarten yet because they're 2 years apart. And so my oldest granddaughter has got my younger granddaughter thinking that it's so funny to tell jokes now. So they've been making up jokes the whole time. And while we were at the pumpkin patch, they were making up jokes about pumpkins, and it was so cute. So one of the jokes was, what kind of tennis do pumpkins like to play? Pumpkin smash! Because that's like a tennis move. But pumpkins like to be smashed, so they play this pumpkin smash. We like to play the monster mash. I like to play it because I listened to that song growing up, and it was really fun. And my grandkids love to dance, so I got to spend like 4 days with them. I'm so grateful I live so close to my daughter, so I could spend all that time with them, and they would come up to my apartment and play with me, and then they'd go down there and play with her, and they danced, and they loved to listen to Halloween music, and Monster Mash is one of their favorites, so I always play it for them every time I'm with them for each Halloween. So I hope you're all having a fun time celebrating fall, and that Halloween's coming up, and I hope you get to go to a pumpkin patch if you've never been to one, because it's so much fun. But I wanted to share, so this was a book that somebody put together for me and gave it to me. I think they gave it to me for Mother's Day when my kids were little. This is when my kids were little, and my very youngest was born. She was a brand new baby. This was taken in the hospital. You can see her there. They were sitting in the hospital chair right next to me. She was a brand new baby. I had 4 kids, and I wrote all of my poems about children for my kids, at least most of them. And so somebody did this for me. It was either Mother's Day or Christmas, and they said, A Mother's Love, Poetry by me. And so I'm going to read you some of my poems. They're my favorite poems. So the first one is My Mommy Always Tells Me, and that's the one that I told you in my first episode that my daughter took because that was one of her favorite poems when they were little. This is my kids when they were little. They don't look the same now grown up, so I feel okay sharing with you because sometimes people don't like their pictures on YouTube because they don't like people to know who they are or where they live, because we like to stay safe, don't we? That's important for kids. But because they look completely different now, I'm okay with sharing them. And I asked my daughter today, since my 2 granddaughters were together, is it okay if I put the 2 little girls, my granddaughters, on an episode of Special Poems with Silly Peeps, and I could share my poems with them and they could be a part of it and laugh and be interactive? But I wanted to ask her because I wanted to make sure that she was comfortable with it. And she said, no, I'd rather not, because she wants to keep her kids safe. And I was totally fine with that. So instead of reading to them, I'm going to read to you and hope that this makes you happy. So I've also written a song for all my kids and grandkids, and I also have some songs in this book of poems that I wrote for all my kids too. And maybe someday I'll share some of my songs with you that I've written. And that might be, I don't know, because that would be a day in the life of a songwriter. So I could do it on the same channel, because my channel is the day in the life of whatever I am and whatever I'm doing and whoever I am. And so I'll do one, a day in the life of a songwriter, and I'll share some of my songs with you. But for now, I'm sharing my silly poems with you. So last night I shared In the Footsteps of My Dad, and it's here in this book, right here before it got published in the Children's Friend. And here's my kids when they were little with their dad. And my little girl, one of my favorite, I'm going to cover their dad's face because I don't like to show people off, but my little girl, see, she used to like to put her daddy's shoes on and walk in them, and now all my little granddaughters put my shoes on and try to walk in them because they think it's so funny. I don't know why kids think it's so funny to try to put their parents' shoes on and walk in them, because they're so big and they fall over and they're clumsy, and it's really funny to watch. So I'm grateful I got a picture of my daughter trying to walk in her dad's big shoes, and she was laughing because she thought it was so funny. I also wrote inspirational poems about when my children were born, and I'll do inspirational poems too, but I'm going to do some funny ones tonight. So now, this one's really funny, and you might have to ask your mom if it's okay, but you know how this one's called Porta Pot, and I have a picture of my little girls camping. But I was taught growing up that we needed to be prepared and have a lot of food storage and have preparations, because I live in a state where there could be an earthquake, and you never know if there's going to be a flood or a tornado. Think of things that might happen in your state. A hurricane. I have a son that lives in Florida with 2 little kids, and it kind of scares me sometimes that there might be hurricanes. And there have been 2 since he's lived there, and he's had to go away. He had to evacuate and go stay with somebody because of the hurricanes, and it can be scary. So we never know when a natural disaster is going to hit. And so I was always taught to be prepared. And one of the things that we can be with besides food is we can have a tent, and we can have warm clothing, and we can have extra clothing, and we can have a backpack with food in it, the kind of food that will stay good and won't spoil if anything ever happens. But another important thing is to have a little potty if you need to use the bathroom and there isn't one, if there's a natural disaster. So I wrote this poem just to be silly, because I also go to a church where we have a prophet. He's our leader, and he tells us to be prepared. And so I kind of incorporated that into this poem. Incorporated is a big word, isn't it? It means I put it together with everything in my poem, because it all makes sense when you put it all together. So anyway, this poem is called Porta Pot, and it might just give you a good laugh. If we ever go out camping in the middle of nowhere, and we have to use the potty and there is no time to spare, we'll be glad we brought along our little porta pot. It's clean, it's close, it's handy, and stinky it is not. And if disaster ever strikes, we'll not be unprepared. Our porta will be tucked away with all that we have spared in our little storage room with all our food and water, 'cause we've listened to the prophet, and if you haven't, well, you oughter. So hopefully that was just something you could laugh at, and I mean, no offense, but sometimes, those are things we have to be prepared with too, because, when there's been hurricanes and things, a lot of mommies and daddies will go out and buy a lot of toilet paper, because we have to be prepared with that, because that's just a fact of life that we have to go potty. So my kids always laughed at that poem, so I thought maybe I could share that and you would laugh at it. Um, I'm just going to share one more funny one because my kids' favorite thing to do when they were little was to play in the bathtub. And guess what? All my grandkids love to play in the bathtub, and they love bubble baths. And now you have the fun little bath bombs that have little surprises in them, and I bought them for my grandkids, and they love them. They can't wait to see what surprise they get. Well, they didn't have the bath bombs like that when my kids were little. They just had bubbles. So I'm gonna cover up these two pictures because I don't want to show too much. I'll just show the top of my daughter's head. She's having fun in the bathtub. But another picture is my son in the bubble bath. See, he's completely in a tub, completely filled with bubbles. And that's because I used to have a jetted tub. Do you know what that means? It means that you turn the jets on and it makes the bubbles go crazy. So he put so many bubbles in the bathtub and he thought it was so funny. So I took a picture of him. So I wrote a poem called The Bathtub, and I'm going to share that with you now too because it's another funny poem that my kids loved. And when I've shared this with other kids, they just laugh because I don't know a child who doesn't like to take a bubble bath. So, the bathtub. Wanna play, said my girls one day. So they jumped into the bathtub and washed their dirt away. They filled it up with laughter. They filled it up with toys. They filled it up with bubbles and made a lot of noise. They acted like they wouldn't care if the world just passed them by. The bathtub is their palace. The bathtub is their high. The bathtub is their hideout, their playground in disguise. So just throw them in the water if they ever start to cries. So does your mom put you in the bathtub if you ever start to cry? Sometimes my grandkids will say, Mommy, we want to take a bath. And she'll finally break down and let them take a bath, even if it's their third bath for that day. So after I got home from the pumpkin patch with my grandkids, my daughter took them down to her apartment and she gave them both a bath. And I'm sure they loved playing in that bathtub together. So I hope you had fun listening to my silly poems today. I know you can all relate because porta potties and bathtubs are things that we can all relate to because we're all human beings. Just like I said in my book, my mommy always tells me when the little girl thought she was a bean, like a green bean, because her mommy told her she was a human being all the time. So she thought that meant she was a green bean because she got confused. So anyway, I hope you had fun and I hope you had a few laughs with my silly poems today. And maybe tomorrow I'll do some more inspirational poems. Okay, take care, everyone. Happy fall.